Hey guys, welcome to the Single Guy's Kitchen again. Today we are going to make soup, but not just any soup, Cuban soup. It's a full meal. Let's take a look. So, like many Cuban meals, there are a couple of different ways to make them, and we will always disagree with our fellow Cubans on what ingredients are the proper ingredients and what are not. But for the most part, we all agree that our soups are mostly made with root vegetables, things like potatoes, taro, which I made a video before using a taro, plantains, typically green plantains, and then some other root vegetables that are not very common among non-Hispanics, things like ñame, which I have not been able to find the translation to English for that root vegetable, so I'll talk about it. And then we use, pumpkin squash, which is very commonly used in soups among Hispanics. Obviously corn, and then yucca, which we pronounce yuca. That it comes in a little bag already cut and frozen, which is pretty convenient because it's really hard to peel. So, and then whether it is beef or chicken, sometimes both. Today we're gonna make beef soup, so I have my beef right here, and so let's take a look at the individual ingredients. Okay, so quickly I'm gonna go over the ingredients that we're gonna use for the soup. First, we're gonna use beef because it's a beef soup, so I'm gonna cut this in pieces and cook it in the pressure cooker for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending. Then we're gonna use the root vegetables because, again, most of our soups are made with root vegetables. Potatoes, taro or malanga, which I've used in previous videos. Green plantains, and I bought this Hawaiian variation, which is very thick, very large. So I bought one of those. And then this is called ñame. I could not find the translation for this in English, so I just don't know what it is. I'm gonna put the name on the screen, and if anybody knows the English name of this, please let me know in the comments. And then I'm gonna use a pumpkin squash. We call it calabaza. Dominicans call it auyama, and in other countries I guess has other names. And then finally I'm gonna use yuca. Now the noodles are angel hair noodles that come bunched up like this. This is only used for soups. People don't use this for anything else but for soups. It comes specifically packed in this way to dump in the soup. And then for the base seasoning, I'm gonna use obviously. I'm gonna use onions. I'm gonna use bell peppers. I have red bell pepper here to make the sofrito, the base seasoning. I'm gonna use also green onions. I have bay leaves, some garlic, and also complete seasoning, which again is a mixture of different spices. Obviously tomato sauce, because most of our seasonings are tomato based for the sofrito, which is the base seasoning again. And then I'm gonna use this other packet of seasoning that has saffron in it, and it gives the soup a very nice color. So next I'm gonna cut the meat and place it in the pressure cooker to get it going and start preparing the base seasoning that we're going to use. Okay, so I'm going to cut the meat in chunks. And then we'll put it in the pressure cooker. And we'll let's give it 30 minutes to cook. So while the meat cooks, we're going to now prepare the base seasoning. So that's the beeping telling me that the pot is now on, and in 30 minutes this will be ready. Okay, so I have here all my root vegetables that I cut. The only thing I'm not putting in the water right now will be the pumpkin squash, because that cooks very quickly, so we leave that for the end. So we're going to carefully place these in the boiling water, right? Very carefully, because you don't want to get burned. Okay, so they're all in there. So now we cover it and we let it boil until tender. You don't want it to break apart completely, so you got to watch it and make sure that they're tender, but not broken down. Okay, so I have already chopped my onions, cut a couple of chunks of pepper, and I have my bay leaves and all the ingredients for the base seasoning. So now let's go over to the stove. I already have a pan with oil almost ready to begin doing making the base seasoning that we're going to use to flavor this. Okay, so I'm going to add my onions. And peppers, and also my garlic. Okay. Now the green onions I'm not gonna include in the base seasoning, because I'm going to throw this into the soup once the seasoning is put in the soup. So that together with these are gonna go separately. So next, going to add my tomato sauce, my bay leaves, and my complete seasoning. I'm also going to add a packet of seasoning as well, and we're going to mix this well and let it cook for about 3 to 5 minutes. Again, the amount of seasonings that you put in the soup or in the base seasoning, I'm talking about the complete seasoning or the packets of seasoning that you put in, that's completely up to you. You can put more or less depending on the flavor you're looking for. Once we mix the seasoning with the actual soup, we'll see if it needs something else, then we'll add as we go. But this is the base seasoning that we're going to be using for the soup. So don't let it stick so that the onions don't overcook, don't burn. And so this is ready. Once the onions are sort of caramelized or broken down, the seasoning is ready to go. So we're gonna turn this off. All we have to do now is wait for the meat to be ready, and then we're going to get the broth and the meat and mix it with the root vegetables that should be ready very shortly. And then we'll add the seasoning to all that, and you'll see how the process goes from there. Okay, so the next step in making the soup is actually to wait for the meat to be ready. And once the meat is ready, we will get the meat and the broth, and we'll add it to the root vegetables. So the water from the root vegetables, I'm gonna throw most of it out because we don't need that much water. And then we'll empty the beef broth and the chunks of meat in with the root veg. Now, once we do that is when we're going to add the pumpkin squash. And the reason is that this cooks very, very quickly. Had we added this to the pot with the root vegetables, it would have already broken down completely and disappeared. So this is the last thing we add to the soup together with the noodles. So these two things go in last, and just, you know, lower the temperature a little bit and just let this cook. And once it's done, the soup is ready. So another thing that I'm gonna make is white rice. We accompany soups very often with white rice. So I'm gonna make some white rice, and so when the soup is ready, we'll serve it with the white rice. So let's get to that. Okay, so while the meat cooks and the root vegetables cook, I'm going to make some white rice. And the reason is that we often eat soups with white rice, a little bit of white rice on the side. Okay, so as you can see, I've emptied most of the water from the root vegetables. And now I'm going to transfer the beef broth and the beef into the pot with the root vegetables. So slowly, because it is very hot. And okay, so now it's all there. And as I said before, the pumpkin squash is the last thing to go in, right? The noodles. And the Thai cilantro or culantro, and my green onions go in now. So I'm also going to add the base seasoning that we made a while back. So all of this goes in there. So you can scoop a little bit of water from there to get all of that seasoning in there. Excellent. So now you can see that the water is getting a very nice color. So now this has to cook until the noodles are ready and the pumpkin squash is also ready. Now you have to taste this as you go because I haven't added salt yet. So as it cooks, go ahead and taste it, and that way you can tell if you need to add, you know, more salt or more seasonings and things like that. There's always a slight variation because the amount of water in which we cook the beef is not really measured. So there might be slight variations, but you can add more seasonings or more salt if you need anything else. For now, we're gonna just let it cook. And as soon as the noodles and the pumpkin squash are cooked, the soup is ready. Okay, so this is the result of the soup. And as you can see, everything is nice and cooked. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Guys Kitchen, thank you for joining me. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. See you next time.